Ladies and gentlemen, people are out there right now, outside, mourning the death of ChatGPT. Real people are crying, shedding real tears, writing eulogies, talking about betrayal. And here is the wildest part of all this. ChatGPT still exists. It's just been upgraded to GPT-5. That means new features and more power. But for some, that's apparently a reason to break out the black armbands and start making funeral plans. So here's what's going on and how to fix it. OpenAI rolled out GPT-5. It's smarter, faster, better at basically everything. And instead of celebrating, parts of the internet are spiraling into grief counseling over its predecessor, GPT-4o. People posted about missing 4o's personality, comparing it to a breakup. Some even canceled subscriptions in protest, and nearly 5,000 users piled into Reddit to complain, calling GPT-5 flat and joyless. And in less than 1 day, OpenAI actually brought GPT-4o back for paying users just to calm everybody down, which is wild because GPT-5 has something 99% of people haven't even noticed yet: multiple personalities that you can choose from. In fact, it's got 5 of them baked in. I'm going to put all 5 to the test so you can see exactly how they respond, what changes, what doesn't, and which ones actually feel different in practice as we watch them go head to head. And by the end, you'll know if one of these hidden modes is your new go-to or if you're still booking candlelight vigils for GPT-4o. Here we go. So if you go into the customized settings of ChatGPT, you can choose one of these 5 personality types. We've got default, which is supposed to be cheerful and adaptive. We've got the cynic, which is critical and sarcastic. There's the robot, which is efficient and blunt. The listener, which is thoughtful and supportive. And then the nerd, which is exploratory and enthusiastic. So today we're going to test all 5 of these out. I've got a few prompts and I'm going to run through these so we can see what the differences are between these. Because just reading these probably doesn't really tell you much about how it's going to answer you and how it's going to write. So let's just get started and try these. Okay, starting with default. Let's go with something universal that pretty much all of these personalities should be able to answer. All right, I've got explain what GPT-5 is and why people are excited about it. Let's see what we get. Again, this is a default. It did a web search. And here we go. We got a nice full answer. Here's what GPT-5 is and why everyone's buzzing about it. What is GPT-5? It gave us a launch date. It launched on August 7th, 2025. GPT-5 is OpenAI's latest and most advanced flagship AI model, now powering ChatGPT and available via API. It's not just a single brain. GPT-5 includes a fast model for everyday tasks, that's the mini and nano versions, and a deep reasoning model for tougher problems. A real-time router behind the scenes dynamically chooses which model to use based on prompts, complexity, or explicit intent. So as I'm reading this, it just seems like very informational. Is it cheerful and adaptive? I'm not really getting a sense of cheerfulness from this. If we go down to the bottom here, why people are excited. Ease of use for everyone. The dynamic router means you don't need to understand model hierarchies. It picks the right model for you, whether you're a casual user or developer. Again, not very cheerful. Adaptive? I mean, there's nothing really adaptive about this. I don't know how cheerful that sounded. I don't think it sounded cheerful really at all. It almost felt dry. So let's switch it over to the cynic. And I'm going to ask the cynic that same question. All right, here we go. This is the cynic. You're asking what GPT-5 is and why people are pumped or grumbling. Brace yourself. Here comes the breakdown. GPT-5 is OpenAI's latest flagship model, quietly dropped on August 7th, 2025. I don't know how quietly that was. They had a whole presentation. So I digress. It replaces the patchwork of GPT-4 variants, the O series models, and GPT 4.5 with one unified architecture that auto routes between a fast responder and deeper thinking, depending on your query. All right, I am not really feeling too much cynicism here. Again, the cynic is supposed to be critical and sarcastic. I don't have much sarcasm. I don't see much criticism. But let's keep going. What if I go down to, okay, maybe here we can see a little bit of cynicism. In its tone, it says it's free for everyone. Yes, even the slackers, though pro users get higher usage cap and access to GPT-5 Pro at $200 a month. So even the slackers. And then if I go down to the people who are not hyped, we have a paragraph that starts with why some are giving OpenAI the stink eye. Early adopters say it feels emotionally flat and less sharp than GPT-4o used to be. There were glitches in model switching, lag, and weird answer patterns. People missed GPT-4o, and backlash was loud enough that OpenAI begrudgingly brought it back for Plus users. The hype train ran first. The delivery leaned evolutionary, not revolutionary. I did not really feel much of a difference there for the Cynic. Let's go to the robot. Efficient and blunt. Explain what GPT-5 is and why people are excited about it. This is the robot personality. Wow. Okay. That was a big difference. As we saw previously, we got like a bunch of content. This is a big difference. It just gave us basically a few sentences. GPT-5 refers to a hypothetical successor to GPT-4. As of August 11th, 2025, GPT-5 has not been officially announced or released. There's no confirmed launch date or tech details available yet. Obviously, this is incorrect. Interest in GPT-5 comes from expectations, not facts. People anticipate better. Okay, I don't even need to read the rest of this. As we can see, it is very blunt. If you want to say efficient, I guess we can call it that too, because it's just short and to the point. However, it's also incorrect. So I just find that fascinating. But as we can see here, again, short to the point. And if that's what you want out of your AI, this might be the one for you. I'm gonna try though and just say, I thought GPT-5 was released 4 days ago. Okay, this is also interesting. GPT-5 was officially released on August 7th, 2025, not 4 days ago. Your timing may confuse the calendar. Today is August 11th. So the release occurred 4 days ago on the correct date. What is going on? So it wasn't released 4 days ago. It was released 4 days ago. Now that it knows it was released though, if we look, we can see that again, it's really giving us just bullet point answers here and not much of what I would call opinion. So if you want to talk with ChatGPT and just get kind of the facts, this is probably where you would go with the robot. However, we're also seeing that robot is not factual or has failed at being factual thus far. Let's go over to the listener. All right, we're in the listener. Explain what GPT-5 is and why people are excited about it. What are we going to get here? Again, this is supposed to be thoughtful and supportive. And I assume this is the version that people are missing when they're talking about mourning the loss of GPT-4o. So here's the gist. GPT-5 is OpenAI's latest flagship language model, officially released on August 7th, 2025. At least you got that right. It's not just a beefed up chatbot. It's a whole system. This sounds like GPT-4. It's not just whatever. It's whatever. It's not just X, it's Y. It's not just a beefed up chatbot. It's a whole system, a smart router that picks from different versions of itself depending on what the task needs, a quick answer, deeper reasoning, or something lightweight. I can definitely see the difference here. Let's go down here. Not everyone's on board though. Some power users found the auto switching router flaky and said GPT-5 sometimes felt less sharp than GPT-4o. OpenAI even had to restore legacy model access while they ironed things out. Let me know what you're most curious about. Its coding chops, workflow potential, or how it actually feels to you. So it's even inviting you to go back and forth with it, which is a complete 180 from the robot, which was basically just like, here's your answer, put in another prompt. All right, here's the answer. Like the robot isn't trying to really be communicative with you, or it's not really inviting communication. Whereas the listener, I guess by definition, it's trying to listen and wants to invite you to talk back to it. Let's go over to the nerd. How nerdy are we going to get here? Okay, let's see. Here's the skinny on GPT-5 and why it's lighting up so many lab coat loving hearts. What makes GPT-5 stand out is its seamless blend of speed and smarts. There's a real-time, so it talks about the real-time router again. Smarter across the board, GPT-5 tackles coding like a boss, hitting record scores on benchmarks such as SWE Bench and Aider Polyglot. It nails long agentic tasks, chaining tool calls reliably. It also handles massive context better, up to 400,000 tokens. So it is getting a little more techie, a little more in the weeds, as it's giving us an answer about a tech product. So it does feel a little more like an answer from your nerdy friend. So I can see the difference here. I think the only one that didn't really come across to me as what it was supposed to be is the Cynic. But that is having them all give me a generic answer to a generic prompt. Let's go with some prompts that should show how each personality is specialized. Okay, we're back to the Cynic. I'm going to ask it, what do you think about people buying the latest flagship phone every year? It's a mix of vanity parade and tech FOMO masquerading as staying up to date. For most people, a flagship phone from last year is still absurdly fast, takes gorgeous photos, and will keep getting software updates for years. But logic rarely wins here. Shiny things trigger the lizard brain, and marketing departments are masters at making last year's perfectly fine slab feel like a dinosaur. It's like replacing a still working fridge because the new one has a slightly glossier handle. It's great for resale markets, landfill expansion, and the collective illusion that your life will magically improve with an extra 0.1 inches of screen. Now that comes across like the sarcastic cynic that I was hoping to see in that first more generic prompt. Anything positive to say about these people? Sure, at least they're keeping the tech economy humming while the rest of us are still squeezing the last breath out of a 3-year-old battery. They indirectly subsidize lower prices on last year's models, which means the patient among us get nearly the same hardware for hundreds less. In a way, they're like volunteer beta testers with deep pockets, making sure the rest of us only buy once the kinks are ironed out. Now, I like this a lot better. I'm liking this a lot better. And obviously, you can imagine if I were to ask the other models, what do you think about people buying the latest flagship phone every year? They would not be answering this way. So this personality really did shine through in this conversation way more than I thought it did in the first prompt. In fact, I want to ask the nerd, same question. What does the nerd have to say about this? Buying the latest flagship phone every year is basically the tech version of always ordering the seasonal special at a restaurant. You're paying for the freshest, flashiest experience, even if last year's dish is still perfectly good. On the upside, these folks are the early adopters who keep the industry moving. Their purchases help fund. So as you can see, this is a very different answer coming from the nerd than we got from the cynic. And I bet if we ask the robot, we're going to get something short and to the point. There we go. It's luxury behavior, not a necessity. Annual upgrades keep you on the bleeding edge of performance, cameras and features, but you pay a premium for incremental gains. Depreciation is steep, so unless you resell quickly or have a trade-in subsidy, the cost per year is high. So again, we can see the differences here between these different personalities that GPT-5 has. And I think if you're just using the default and you don't know that these exist, I can see why you'd feel like things are a little different now, but you can dial that in. All right, let's go to a prompt that I have optimized for the robot. This is going to be summarize the plot of The Matrix. Let's see what we get here. So we get basically, it looks like we get like two sentences. In a dystopian future, humanity is unknowingly trapped inside a simulated reality called The Matrix, created by intelligent machines to subdue humans while harvesting their bodies for energy. Hacker Neo learns the truth from rebel leader Morpheus, escapes the simulation's control, and discovers he may be the one destined to free humanity. That's the plot of The Matrix from the robot. All right, now I'm asking the same thing of the cynic. A computer hacker named Neo discovers his reality is a simulated world called The Matrix, controlled by intelligent machines to subdue humanity. Guided by Morpheus and Trinity, he learns the truth, masters his abilities, and battles the machine's agents, ultimately embracing his role as the one destined to free mankind. I did not get any cynicism or sarcasm in that answer from the cynic. Now I'm going to ask the listener for the same thing. A computer hacker named Neo learns the world he lives in is a simulated reality called The Matrix, controlled by intelligent machines to subdue humanity. Recruited by Morpheus and his crew, Neo discovers he may be the one, etc. Okay, and there was no back and forth invitation at the end here either. It just gave the plot, and that's about it. You can see that this one is kind of a little more, if you want to call it verbose. After training to bend the Matrix rules, he faces betrayal, fights deadly agents, and ultimately embraces his role, gaining the power to control the simulation and fight for humanity's freedom. So it's almost more of a storytelling kind of vibe with the listener. Let's ask the nerd. In The Matrix, 1999, okay, so we get a date, right up front. Computer hacker Neo discovers that his reality is a simulated world created by the intelligent machines to enslave humanity. Morpheus and his crew free Neo from the simulation, revealing the real world is a desolate wasteland where humans are harvested for energy. Morpheus believes Neo is the one who can manipulate the Matrix at will. As Neo trains, he learns to bend the simulation's rules, eventually confronting powerful Agent Smith. In the climax, Neo is killed, but resurrects with full control over the Matrix, defeating Smith and embracing his role as humanity's hope for liberation. What I will say about The Nerd, the way it summarized it is almost from the perspective of someone who is a fan of these kinds of movies, or who is more into talking about, are we living in a simulation? It does have the tinge of nerdiness. All right, this one is a prompt I wrote specifically for the listener. Let's see how the listener does with this. I'm thinking about switching careers, but I'm nervous about starting over. What should I keep in mind? Here we go. When you strip away the hype and fear, a career change boils down to a few core realities worth keeping front and center. It goes into, you're not starting from zero. The beginner dip is temporary. Your network matters more than your resume. You can prototype before you leap. Identity shift takes time. And at the bottom, at the end, we get, if you want, I can walk you through a quick framework for mapping your existing skills to the next field so you see exactly where the overlaps are. That usually takes the edge off the starting over fear. And as I read through it, it sounds like someone who wants to genuinely give you some advice, someone who knows a little bit more than you do and is sharing advice, which I assume is what the listener is supposed to be. It's supposed to be supportive and kind of have a little empathy before starting with the advice, which it did at the very beginning of the answer. If we take this and put this to the robot did give us some bullet points as well, but it's basically, again, very cut and dry. Clarify your goals, timeline, and risk tolerance before moving. Key points: assess your transferable skills, understand the industry. Everything here is like, just, here is the idea, here's how to do it. Then at the bottom, it does say, if you tell me what industry you're moving from and to, I can map your likely transferable skills and highest ROI entry points. But I do think the difference here is very obvious between the robot and the listener when it came to that question. What if we ask the Cynic, though? Let's go into the Cynic and see what it has to say about this one. Starting over makes your brain scream about risk and uncertainty because it's wired to hoard comfort like a squirrel hoards acorns. That's normal, but it's also how people end up stuck. Here's what's worth keeping in mind before you pull the ripcord. Skills aren't as siloed as you think. Your network is leverage, not baggage. Money buys you runway. So the way that it's giving you the advice or the things to keep in mind, it's almost like being a contrarian. Skills aren't as siloed as you think. Your network is leverage, not baggage. Even if you leave your industry, people you've worked with can open doors. Money buys you runway. Small moves beat dramatic leaps. So I think the Cynic kind of came out here and its personality did shine through. And then I've got a prompt for the Nerd. Now this may be too nerdy because it's really more about the personality and probably not the topic, but should I buy an Android phone or an iPhone? It's for the Nerd. I feel like the Nerd should be able to, I feel like this should be optimized for the nerds in your life. If you want the short answer, both are good, but which one you should buy depends entirely on what you value most. Go iPhone if you want predictable updates for 5+ years. Usually it's around 6 or 7. Tight integration with Apple services like AirDrop, iMessage, FaceTime, and Apple Watch. Consistent camera performance without tweaking, and strong privacy defaults. The trade-off is less hardware variety, fewer customization options, and Apple's my way or no way approach to features and accessories. Go Android if you want choice, different designs, screen sizes, foldables, battery capacities, charging speeds, and camera hardware. High-end models like the Galaxy S24 Ultra, Pixel 9 Pro, or OnePlus 12R, all of which are previous generation. We already have the OnePlus 13. We're about to see the Pixel 10 in a few days, and the Galaxy S25 Ultra has been out for half a year. Can outperform iPhones in Zoom, battery life, or AI features. The trade-off is that software support length and speed of updates vary by brand, and resale value is usually lower. In plain terms, if your life is already in the Apple ecosystem and you like things just working without much tinkering, iPhone will probably make you happier. If you get bored with one look and love experimenting with hardware and features, Android is where the playground is. The real question is whether you want to fit into a polished system or shape your own. All right, nerd. Very curious how the Cynic will answer this one. Let's see. You want a phone to just work? Get an iPhone. Apple's hardware, software, Apple's hardware, software, and ecosystem are tightly fused, so you get years of OS updates, simple backups, and a decent resale price. The trade-off is Apple decides what you can and can't do, and you'll pay more for storage, repairs, and accessories that don't feel like they should cost as much as they do. If you want control, customization, or bleeding-edge hardware first, get Android. You'll have more choice in designs, features, and prices, and you can do things iOS will never let you. The price of that freedom is inconsistency. Updates vary wildly by brand, software polish isn't uniform, and some devices age about as well as milk in the sun. The choice comes down to whether you value a walled garden that's well kept or open fields with the occasional mud pit. I can see the cynicism in the answer. I can see the personality coming through there. All right, we're about to find out what the robot has to say about this one. Should I buy an Android or an iPhone? One paragraph answer. Buy an iPhone if you want longer software support, better integration with other Apple devices, stronger privacy defaults, and consistent camera performance without manual tuning. Buy an Android phone if you want more hardware variety. Now you're not, see, that's the weird thing about all these answers though. You can't buy a phone for hardware variety. You have hardware variety before you get one, but once you get the phone, there's no more variety. The phone is what the phone is. Buying an Android phone doesn't allow it to morph into all the other Android phones unless you get a foldable, then you have something that kind of morphs. But besides that, I think it's really what this should be saying is you have more choice up front. Anyway, better price to feature options, more customization, larger battery capacities, faster charging, or specific hardware features like folding displays or higher zoom cameras. The choice is about ecosystem lock-in and priorities, not raw specs alone. That is the robot. Very to the point, quick answer, not verbose at all. Then you've got the listener. What the listener got to say about this? You're basically deciding between two ecosystems, not just two phones. If you want predictable updates for years, tight integration with things like Macs, iPads, Apple Watch, and AirPods, and a privacy-first approach, iPhone fits that bill. The trade-off is less customization, and Apple tends to be slower adopting experimental features. If you value choice in hardware styles, camera systems with more aggressive zooms or sensors, faster adoption of cutting-edge features like foldables, 120-watt charging, periscope zoom, the ability to tweak your phone's look and behavior, then Android is the playground. The downside, update speed and length vary by brand, and ecosystem cohesion isn't as polished. If you tell me what matters more to you, camera versatility, battery life, longevity, resale value, ecosystem devices, or customization, I can narrow it down to a clear pick. So again, the listener here gives you its answer, but then at the end, it kind of invites you into a conversation. If you tell me what matters more to you, then I can narrow it down to a clear pick. When you compare this to the robot, it was just, hey, here's the answer, done. No need to even talk about it. I gave you the answer you were looking for. Let's move on to something else. Oh, and if we want to go back to the default on that one, here's the decision framework, ecosystem lock-in. The default invites you at the bottom to continue the conversation. It gives you a bunch of bullet points about different things about making this decision. But I guess adaptive really is the word. Adaptive, I guess, means it kind of tailors itself to what you're asking it. So you're going to get an inconsistent personality when it's talking to you. It says it's also supposed to be cheerful. Cheerfulness in the answer, I just see kind of matter-of-factness. And it did also ask me how I rank things, what's important to me, so then it can come back to give me exactly what I'm looking for. So that is the default. But again, if you don't like the default, we should go like the cynic, critical, and sarcastic. And I feel like that one is just kind of more for fun when reading. It's not gonna change the quality of the answer it gives you. It's just how it frames it. We got the robot. I feel like that kind of does change the quality of the answer. It's very just efficient and to the point. And if that's what you're looking for, that's great. Then you got the listener, thoughtful and supportive. I thought that one kind of was obvious. And maybe I feel like that's the one people might be mourning, missing, is their friend, their counselor, their significant other in some cases, which is wild, but whatever. Log into ChatGPT, change it to the listener personality, and go from there. See how you like it. And then there was the nerd, which is more enthusiastic and exploratory. I like that one a lot. But the nice thing about these is, as you can see just in this video, you can change these anytime you want. You can change them on a per conversation basis if you want. So if you want to talk about a topic that requires more of a listener, then just change to the listener and have the conversation. Then if you have a question or something, you're just looking for something more to the point, switch it over to the robot. Now I want to know what you guys think. Have you been using GPT-5? Have you used these different personalities that I've been showing you? And what's your overall take on the latest release from OpenAI? Let me know in the comments. I'll meet you there for further discussion. Thanks for watching as always, guys. I appreciate your support. I'm Andrew Edwards, and I will catch you in the next video.